I just want justice for my daughter, and I want peace in my family. This has been such a hard 3 months.
A mother slips a loving note into her 6-year-old son's lunchbox. "Happy Monday," she writes. "You're the coolest, smartest, funniest kid I know." Minutes later, she's held in a headlock by the father of her child while his new girlfriend retrieves a gun from her car, runs back, and fires 4 rounds into her face at point-blank range. In broad daylight, right after the school drop-off. The shooter walks free for 3 months. But today, December 4th, 2024, everything changes. This is the story of Romeca Meeks Blackman, and what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice. Before we dive into this absolutely devastating case, if you're new to One Crime at a Time, welcome. We dig into the cases that demand answers, the stories that can't be forgotten, and the victims who deserve justice. So if you appreciate what we do here, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and click that bell icon so you never miss an episode. Trust me, you're going to want to stay updated on this one, because what just happened in this case is massive. Now let's talk about Romeca. September 8th, 2025. It's a Monday morning in Chicago's South Loop. Parents are dropping their kids off at school, coffee cups in hand, probably thinking about their to-do lists for the day. It's just after 9 in the morning, and for most people, it's an ordinary start to an ordinary week. But for 31-year-old Romeca Meeks Blackman, this Monday morning would be her last. And what makes this even more heartbreaking is that she had no idea what was coming. She was focused on being a good mom. Her son had recently started first grade, and like any loving parent, she wanted to make his day special. So that morning, she wrote him a note. A simple, beautiful note that said, "Happy Monday, son. Today is a fresh start to this day, and you can start off strong. Always remain yourself. You're the coolest, smartest, and funniest kid I know. I love you so much, and you make me so proud. Have a great day." Think about that for a second. She took the time to sit down and write those words. She folded that note, tucked it into his lunchbox, and sent him off to school with love and encouragement. That little boy would open that lunchbox at lunchtime, read his mother's words, and feel proud. Feel loved. Feel safe. Except his mother would never pick him up from school that day. She would never write him another note. She would never see him turn 7 years old. Because within minutes of dropping him off, Romeca was gunned down in the street. Here's what we know happened. Shortly after Romeca dropped her son off at school near Cermak Road and State Street in Chicago's South Loop, a vehicle pulled up. Inside that vehicle were 2 people. Carlos Losos Way, also known as Rackboy Loso on social media, and his girlfriend Khadijah Holly Johnson. Now, Carlos wasn't just some random guy. He was the father of Romeca's son. And Holly Johnson wasn't just some random woman. She was Carlos's current girlfriend, and they also shared a young child together. So you've got this toxic triangle. The ex, the current girlfriend, and the man in the middle. And according to witnesses, there was already tension between these 3. In fact, Holly Johnson had filed protective orders against Romeca. Not just once, but multiple times. The first one dated back to December 2023, and there was another one filed as recently as the summer of 2025. Now here's where it gets interesting. Romeca's family believes those protective orders weren't filed because Holly was actually in danger. They believe those orders were strategic. A paper trail. A way to set Romeca up and make her look like the aggressor. Because if you can paint someone as dangerous, if you can create a legal record that says this person is a threat to you, then what happens when you end up in a confrontation with them? It gives you cover. It gives you a defense. And that's exactly what Holly Johnson would try to claim. So Carlos and Holly pull up. Witnesses say there's an argument. Things escalate quickly. And then, according to multiple eyewitness accounts, Carlos puts Romeca in a headlock. Let me say that again. The father of her child, a man she once trusted, physically restrains her. He's got her in a headlock and she can't move. She can't defend herself. She can't run. And in those moments, Holly Johnson doesn't try to de-escalate. She doesn't call the police. She doesn't get back in the car and drive away. Instead, she walks back to her vehicle, opens the door, and pulls out a gun. Then she runs back to where Carlos is holding Romeca, and she fires. 4 rounds. 4 shots at close range. One bullet hits Romeca in the face. Another hits her chin. Another strikes her thigh. The shots echo through the neighborhood. People nearby freeze. Some scream. Some pull out their phones and start recording. And Romeca Meeks Blackman, a 31-year-old mother who just wanted to make sure her son had a good day at school, collapses on the pavement. Emergency services are called. Romeca is rushed to Stroger Hospital, one of Chicago's major trauma centers. But the damage is too severe. She's pronounced dead. And just like that, a little boy becomes motherless. A family loses a daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend. And the two people responsible, Carlos and Holly, they're still standing there when police arrive. Holly Johnson is taken into custody. And here's where the story takes a turn that will make your blood boil. Despite the fact that there were witnesses, despite the fact that there was video evidence, despite the fact that Holly Johnson admitted on camera that she had a concealed carry license and had just used her weapon, she was released. No charges filed. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office put out a statement saying, after an initial review of the evidence presented by police, there is insufficient information to make a charging decision at this time. Insufficient information. Let that sink in. A woman is dead. There's video. There are witnesses. The shooter is on camera. And somehow that's not enough? Romeca's family was devastated. Her mother, Tina McMiller, spoke out publicly. She broke down at a vigil held on September 13th at Englewood STEM High School, where balloons bearing Romeca's nickname, Big Meeks, were released into the sky. Tina stood there, tears streaming down her face, and said, "I am broken. I am so broken." She talked about how Romeca was kind, sweet, loving, very supportive, and an amazing mother. She loved her son. She loved me. She loved her siblings, and I loved her the same. Tina also shared something that broke hearts across the city. She said that Romeca's 6-year-old son, the little boy who found that loving note in his lunchbox, has shut down. He don't want to be around nobody. He's preparing for his 7th birthday, which should be a time of joy and celebration, but instead he's grieving. He's confused. He's traumatized. And the people responsible are walking free. But Tina wasn't going to let this go. She demanded justice. She called for someone to be held accountable. She said someone has to pay for this. It's not right. And she wasn't alone. The community rallied. A Change.org petition was created, titled Urge Charges Against Quadaja Johnson for Romeca Meeks' Murder. Thousands of people signed it. The petition raised a critical question. After all, who brings a gun to a school unless there's the intent to use it? The petition also highlighted concerns that individuals may misuse protective orders to commit acts of violence with perceived immunity. Because that's exactly what it looked like. Holly Johnson had filed those protective orders, built her paper trail, and then when the confrontation happened, she had her excuse ready. Self-defense. But here's the thing. Romeca was unarmed. She was held in a headlock by someone stronger than her. She had no weapon. She posed no lethal threat. And even if there was an argument, even if things got heated, you don't get to execute someone in the street and call it self-defense. Meanwhile, Carlos Losos posted on his Facebook page shortly after the shooting. He wrote, "Worst day of my life." That post got 9,000 shares and over 7,300 comments. And people were not sympathetic. They called him out. They said he wasn't crying in his video. They questioned why he held Romeca while his girlfriend shot her. They asked why he wasn't arrested. Some people even pointed out that he said he lost both of his baby mamas in one day, which seemed to suggest he saw himself as the victim in all of this. The outrage was real. People could see what had happened. They could see the injustice. And they wanted answers. For nearly 3 months, the case sat in limbo. No charges. No arrests. Just a grieving family and a community demanding justice. Romeca's cousin, Ciardra Bays, spoke at the vigil and asked for strength. She said, "We are here to support an amazing baby. I ask that you give us strength. Give us strength, Father, for every one of us, because we're going to need it in this moment." And they did need it. Because waiting for justice when the evidence is so clear, when the crime is so blatant, is excruciating. Every day that passed without charges felt like a slap in the face. It felt like Romeca's life didn't matter. It felt like the system had failed her. And then just hours ago, everything changed. On December 4th, breaking news hit. Quadaja Holly Johnson has been charged with first-degree murder. After nearly 3 months of waiting, the charges finally came through. Holly Johnson is scheduled to appear in court Thursday at 11 in the morning. This is a massive, massive development. The family's persistence, the community's outcry, the pressure from social media, the petition, all of it finally pushed the system to act. But the question remains, why did it take so long? The evidence was there from day one. The video was there. The witnesses were there. So what changed? Did new evidence come to light? Did prosecutors finally realize they couldn't ignore this case anymore? Or was it simply that the public pressure became too loud to ignore? Here's what we know about the charges. First-degree murder is the most serious charge you can face in a homicide case. It means the prosecution believes Holly Johnson intentionally and with premeditation killed Romeca Meeks Blackman. And given the circumstances, given the fact that she went back to her car to retrieve the weapon, given the fact that she fired 4 rounds at close range, it's hard to argue this wasn't intentional. But here's where things get complicated. Holly Johnson's defense will likely argue self-defense. They'll point to those protective orders she filed. They'll say she felt threatened. They'll say she feared for her life. And that's where the legal battle is going to get intense. Because the prosecution will have to prove that Romeca posed no imminent threat, that Holly had other options, and that the use of lethal force was not justified. They'll bring in those witnesses who saw Carlos holding Romeca in a headlock. They'll show that Romeca was unarmed. They'll argue that Holly could have stayed in her car, could have driven away, could have called the police. But instead, she chose violence. She chose to take a life. And what about Carlos? That's the question everyone is asking. Why hasn't he been charged? He held Romeca in a headlock while his girlfriend shot her. That makes him complicit, doesn't it? At the very least, he assisted in the crime. At worst, he was an active participant in a murder. There are calls for him to be charged as an accessory, if not more. Because you can't hold someone down while they're being killed and then claim you didn't know what was going to happen. You can't be part of a confrontation that ends in someone's death and walk away without consequences. The legal system needs to answer for why Carlos Losos' way is still free. And the community is watching. They're watching to see if justice will truly be served or if once again, the system will let them down. Let's talk about what this case really represents. This isn't just about one woman being killed. This is about domestic violence. This is about the dangerous dynamics that happen when relationships end and new ones begin. This is about how protective orders, which are supposed to protect victims, can be weaponized by abusers. This is about how the legal system often fails women, especially Black women, especially mothers, who are trying to navigate complicated co-parenting situations with dangerous partners. Romeca was trying to be a good mom. She was in school working to become a nurse. She had dreams. She had goals. She loved her son more than anything in this world. And she was killed because of the jealousy, the anger, the possessiveness of 2 people who couldn't let go of their egos. Think about the protective orders Holly filed. On the surface, protective orders are a good thing. They're meant to keep people safe from abusers, from stalkers, from people who pose a genuine threat. But in this case, it appears those orders were used as a tool. A way to flip the script and make Romeca look like the aggressor. A way to set up a self-defense claim before the violence even happened. And that's terrifying. Because if people can manipulate the legal system like that, if they can file false protective orders to build a case for future violence, then the system itself becomes a weapon. It becomes a tool that abusers can use to justify their actions. And that needs to be addressed. Courts need to take a harder look at protective order requests. They need to investigate whether the claims are legitimate or whether they're being used strategically. Because in Romeca's case, it's clear that those orders weren't about safety. They were about control. Now let's talk about Romeca's son. This little boy just turned 7 years old, or he's about to. And instead of celebrating with his mom, instead of having her there to sing happy birthday and watch him blow out his candles, he's grieving. He's confused. He's asking questions that no child should have to ask. Where's my mom? Why isn't she coming back? And his grandmother, Tina McMiller, is now raising him. She's trying to give him stability, trying to help him process this trauma, trying to be both grandmother and mother. But it's not the same. It will never be the same. That boy will grow up knowing that his mother was taken from him violently. He'll grow up knowing that his father was involved. He'll grow up with questions and pain and a wound that will never fully heal. And that's the real cost of this crime. It's not just Romeca's life that was taken. It's her son's childhood. It's his sense of safety. It's his ability to trust the world. And no amount of justice can give that back to him. So where do we go from here? Holly Johnson appeared in court. And what came out in that courtroom is absolutely stunning. First of all, Holly Johnson is currently pregnant. She appeared before the judge carrying another child while facing murder charges for killing a mother. Let that sink in for a moment. Second, and this is huge, prosecutors revealed that Holly Johnson had never met Romeca Meeks Blackman in person before the day she killed her. Never. Despite filing protective orders against Romeca back in December 2023, despite claiming she felt threatened, despite building this entire paper trail, the two women had never even met face to face. Holly claimed in her protective order filing that Romeca had threatened her through family members, but there was no direct contact. So, how do you file a protective order against someone you've never met? How do you claim to fear for your life from someone you've had zero in-person interactions with? It makes the family's argument even stronger that these protective orders were strategic, premeditated, and designed to set up a legal defense before the violence even occurred. Here's what else prosecutors revealed in court today. On September 8th, Holly Johnson and Carlos, the father of her 6-month-old baby, were near his home. He drove Holly to 20 West Cermak, where her car was parked. They placed their 6-month-old child into Holly's car. Around the same time, Romeca had just dropped off her son at school and drove to the area. Witnesses told police the women argued. They reported Carlos pushing Holly away at one point, and Romeca standing with her arms crossed. Arms crossed. That's the posture of someone who's defensive, maybe annoyed, but not someone who's being aggressive or threatening. And yet, Holly went to her car, retrieved her gun, and fired 4 rounds. The judge ordered Holly Johnson to remain in custody without bond, and she's due back in court on December 23rd. So as we're recording this, she's sitting in jail, pregnant, awaiting trial for first-degree murder. But even if she's convicted, even if she spends the rest of her life in prison, it won't bring Romeca back. It won't undo the trauma her son has experienced. It won't heal her family's pain. Justice, in cases like this, is never truly satisfying. It's necessary, yes. It's important, absolutely. But it's not enough. Because the real tragedy is that this was preventable. If the warning signs had been taken seriously, if the protective orders had been scrutinized, if Carlos had been held accountable for his role, if Holly had made a different choice that day. But none of those things happened. And now Romeca is gone. Let me ask you something. What do you think should happen to Carlos Losos way? Do you think he should be charged as an accessory to murder? Do you think holding someone in a headlock while they're being shot makes you just as guilty as the person who pulled the trigger? And what about the protective orders? Do you think Holly Johnson filed them strategically to set up a self-defense claim? Or do you think she genuinely felt threatened by Romeca? Here's another question, and this one is even harder. If you were on that jury, if you had to watch the video, listen to the witnesses, and look at the evidence, would you believe Holly Johnson's self-defense claim? Or would you see it for what it really appears to be, a calculated act of violence against a woman who was unarmed and restrained? And on a deeper level, what does this case say about how we handle domestic violence in this country? What does it say about how we protect mothers who are trying to co-parent with dangerous partners? What does it say about the legal system's willingness to take women's safety seriously, especially Black women, even when the abuser has built a paper trail that makes them look like the victim? These are hard questions. They're uncomfortable questions. But they're questions we have to ask if we truly want to prevent more cases like this from happening. So here's what I want from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Holly Johnson will be convicted? Do you think Carlos should be charged? What do you think about the protective orders? And what do you believe needs to change in the legal system to stop tragedies like this before they happen? Let's have a real conversation about this. And while you're here, hit that like button if you think Romeca's story deserves to be heard. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, because the more people who know about this case, the more pressure there is for real justice. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the important cases we cover. Every time you engage, it helps push these stories into the light where they belong. And most importantly, if you or someone you know is in a dangerous domestic situation, please reach out for help. There are resources available. You don't have to face this alone. If you found this case as gripping and heartbreaking as I did, check out the next video on the channel. We cover cases just like this, and your support helps us keep these stories alive.